Welcome, this is Jim Beauregard, Minnesota Department of Public Safety, Ignition Interlock Program. What I'd like to do today is take a few minutes to talk to you about Ignition Interlock and how important it is for law enforcement to be actively involved in the Ignition Interlock program. What we have in Minnesota is a hybrid program. In other words, we have an administrative program, and that's run by DVS here in Minnesota, and we also have a court program. In other words, we can see, for example, DWI courts or judges that might ask that an ignition interlock be put in a client's vehicle. Currently, we have approximately 8,000 plus clients on the program in Minnesota. We expect that number to continue to increase as more people become familiar with the program and how they might be actively involved in that. Just like everything else, traffic stops, saturation patrols, ignition interlock is another tool that officers can use in regards to making their communities safer. We know that when clients are sentenced and they lose their license for whatever reason, 70 to 75% of those people are driving illegally. This ignition interlock is a tool that can be used to get people driving legally and at the same time be able to control the alcohol and the driving part of it. That is huge. We see some real good numbers in regards to recidivism issues when people have these installed in their vehicle. All devices in Minnesota, by regulation, must be operated with an electrochemical fuel cell sensor involved, and that's basically the same sensors that officers find in their PBTs. So where can the law enforcement officer go to gather other additional information? One of the things that we're looking to do is make sure that we're providing enough information out there in regards to booking room posters. Here's an example that's available through the Office of Traffic Safety. All these things can be obtained free of charge for law enforcement through the Office of Traffic Safety. You can go out to their website, go to law enforcement, link on there, and all these things are available to you free at no cost. So you can hand them one of these even before they go to court that says, hey, here's a way that you can legally get your license back and be active again in the community. Asking probation and court services, if they have these brochures and information available that they can continue to pass on. I will be referencing and talking about some things specifically in a moment that law enforcement can do when they make traffic stops. But all that information is also contained on a video, DVD video, that the Minnesota State Patrol, along with a number of our local agencies, have put together in what we call a roll call, ignition interlock roll call video. It's approximately 8 minutes long, and it provides a lot of information of things to look for during a traffic stop. Pocket or visor cards regarding what are some ignition interlock violations according to Minnesota statute. Have that handy in case you stop somebody and you find one of the violations that we're going to talk about. And of course the DWI Easy guideline brochure is out there. Those are things that you can find on the Office of Traffic Safety website, all free for download. We've talked a little bit about why it's important for law enforcement to take an active role in regards to ignition interlock. What should law enforcement look for when they make a traffic stop? Well, one of the most important things is to look at that license, that driver's license, to see if there's a restriction. Look at CJIS printout for dispatchers. Is there a restriction of ignition interlock? If there is, there's some real basic things to look for when you make that traffic stop. Now, we have about 6 different vendors or companies that are operating in the state of Minnesota that are installing ignition interlocks in vehicles. So when you walk up to a car and the driver you discover has an ignition interlock restriction on there, this is the one thing that you'll see first of all, and that's the handset. And you can see there's a mouthpiece on there. This is the device that they actually blow into. Now, Minnesota's set point is a .02. What that means is if an individual's alcohol level is above a .02 and they blow in here, their vehicle is not going to be able to start. And that's because the device is wired in, this handset is wired in, to a device which is underneath the dash that most officers won't see because it's wired up inside the dash. And all the connections are covered with this shrink wrap. And that is to prevent people from trying to circumvent the device by either rewiring it or unplugging the wires and those types of things. Additionally to the shrink wrap that officers are going to see out there typically is going to be another prevention label with the name of the company, for example, attached to that or wrapped around that shrink wrap, so that officers that might look at that, whether it's on the device itself, the brains of the operation, or if it's on this connection here and it's missing, that tells the officer that someone may have been tampering with the device. So those are some real quick things to look for out there. We encourage officers to have the client pull on the cord. Sometimes what happens is they try and get around that by disconnecting the wires underneath the dash. And so if the officers can say, well, can you just pull on that for a minute and take a look and make sure that it's in fact attached. Each of these devices are equipped with a camera, so that in fact the state knows exactly who's blowing in there. Anyone who drives that vehicle must be trained to operate the device, and their photo is taken. So we can be assured that whoever's blowing in there in fact is complying, and if it's our client that's under the auspices of the program, that in fact it's them and not another member of their family blowing into there to get the vehicle to start. Here's the critical part that officers need to ask and go through when they stop somebody. And that is, each of these devices has a 3-minute restart timer on there. For example, if I shut my vehicle off, everything's running, I have one of these, I shut my vehicle off, I will have 3 minutes to restart that without blowing into the device. Why is that important for officers to know? Because when you're on that traffic stop and you want to make sure that they have not circumvented this, what you need to ask them to do is turn the vehicle off and wait that full 3 minutes. Then when they turn the key back on or they go to start the vehicle, they must blow in there to make sure that their alcohol level 1 is under that 0.20 and that they haven't circumvented it. If you say to them, okay, now turn the key and try and start the vehicle, and it in fact starts without them blowing in there, you know that they've circumvented or something's not hooked up, they've done something to that that you need to be aware of. So that critical 3 minutes is something to keep in mind. All the things that we're talking about today, again, is on that DVD, that video, so I encourage people to go out and either get a copy of that DVD from the Office of Traffic Safety, or the officers can go out there if they're sitting in a squad car, they can do a search on YouTube under Minnesota Ignition Interlock roll call video, and that will pop up and they will be able to view that. Just some important things to remember. Making sure that the connections are good, that the officers have them turn the vehicle off, wait that 3 minutes, and if the vehicle starts without them blowing in there, they've circumvented that. In regards to possible criminal violations with ignition interlock, officers should be aware, if there in fact is that restriction on an individual's driver's license that says they are supposed to be driving a vehicle equipped with an ignition interlock, and they are not driving a vehicle equipped, that is in fact a violation of Minnesota law. What's also a violation of Minnesota law is if you find out they've circumvented or tampered with that ignition interlock in any way, shape, or form. Either they've tried to rewire it, they've put something on the mouthpiece to put other air into it besides human breath. Those types of circumventions are in fact violations of Minnesota law. Additionally, it can be a violation for any individual to allow a person to drive a vehicle not equipped with an ignition interlock if they have that restriction, if they knowingly, of course, know that that individual is supposed to be driving a vehicle with ignition interlock. Violations that officers can look for out there, again, we'll reference those to that visor card or whatever, they can look those up. Most of all, I want to sort of go back and reference that a lot of this material that's out there is available to you free at cost from the Office of Traffic Safety. So be sure and go out there and get that information, disseminate it through your departments, and share it with court services and court personnel so that we can all become more familiar with this program, and we can be assured that the quality control is out there. So thank you very much for taking some time today, and if you have any questions, I'm free to come out to departments. I've been doing training for law enforcement in more of the specifics of ignition interlock. Don't be afraid to give me a call or schedule some of those appointments. I'll certainly come around and we'll talk more about the devices.